Dean Buonomano, who is a neuroscientist and the author of Brain Bugs. Dean, there are going to be a lot of people watching this show who are in the business of reaching people's brains because they want to sell them something. Do you sell to people through the brain?
Well, absolutely. And there's no doubt that the incredible success of marketing and advertising and propaganda in many ways exploits the brain's features and the brain's flaws. So all we need to do is look at the history of marketing. And I think, interestingly enough, marketers and advertisers understood more about how the brain works than neuroscientists and psychologists for a long period of time. So why is it that advertising is so effective? It's so ubiquitous in the modern world. And that's because it's so effective. Of course, advertising plays an important role in disseminating information. But of course, it also sways our opinions and our habits. And the question is why is it so effective? Why was, let's take a negative example, which is the tragic success of marketing cigarettes. So why are we so sensitive to marketing? And I think we speculate as to two reasons. Of course, we don't understand much about the brain, and this is just one of the many things we don't really understand. But first place, marketing often taps into the associative architecture of the brain, the fact that we build associations. So even if I've never drinking a beer in my life, I might know who the king of beers is just due to repetition and advertising and propaganda of that I'm exposed to. So the brain can't help but pick up on associations. So if you hear that the dibble is the cause of the plane accident, you might not know what a dibble is, but you come to associate dibbles with something important for airplanes. So the brain picks up on associations. That's one way we make sense of the world. The second feature of the brain that marketing probably taps into is the fact that we imitate each other. It's impossible to overestimate how important imitation is for learning and cultural transmission. So a child will imitate their parents, whether the parents are scrubbing the floor, talking on their iPhone, or watching TV. So it seems that the brain actually has specialized parts of the brain called the mirror neurons that are specialized for imitation. So there's no doubt that imitation plays a very important role in who we are, but our natural propensity to imitate is important for the process of advertising and propaganda and marketing.
Are you saying then that it's the business of marketers and brand managers to take advantage of brain bugs, of the deficiencies in the design of the thing?
I think to a certain extent that's true. So advertising and marketing have a very strong and important role, as I said, in disseminating information and giving us information that we need. But to another extent, of course, they're taking advantage of some of our flaws to often sway us into habits or buying things that are not in our own best interests. So certainly cigarettes clearly fall into that category. That's sort of an undisputable fact that marketing played a very important role in in the universality of cigarette smoking that wasn't in our own best interests in the long run. So much of what we do relies both on the brain's features and to a degree exploiting its flaws or its brain bugs.
So what you're really saying then, in a peculiar way, is that the brain isn't always very good for us.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So, and why is that? So we don't always behave rationally. And so there's many cases where we do make decisions that are not always in our best interests. Whether it's purchasing things that we really can't afford, going into credit card debt, being addicted to something. So yes, there's no doubt that our brain can sometimes not be good for us because we become addicted to something, or we make decisions that end up hurting us in the long run. So that's absolutely correct. The brain, it's both features and flaws, no doubt about it.
Any chance of you designing better brains for the guys, particularly in Washington, D.C.?
Well, that would be a priority, wouldn't it? But I think that's an interesting example, another one that one of the things we don't do very well is make long-term decisions. And a typical example here is if I say, Andrew, I'll give you $100 right now or $120 in a month. Most people in those circumstances choose the $100 now, and it's a bit of an immediate gratification bias because this makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? Because if I say, if you're living in the Amazon forest and I say, do you want an apple now or 2 apples in a month? You probably want the apple now because you're hungry. So the brain doesn't seem to be well optimized to make or to balance short-term and long-term decisions. And I think that's playing a role in the budget crisis. So first we overborrowed, as we often do on our personal, with our own personal finances. Also happens at the national and state levels. And also it's very hard to fix the problem by adjusting or increasing taxes, because it's very difficult to accept a short-term punishment for a long-term benefit. So absolutely, I think there's many of our brain bugs that contribute to problems at the national level.